Gentlemen, do you ever feel like you need a break from intercourse? Well, more than likely not, understandably so. But if exploring the full recesses of who you are as a human being is of some interest to you, then a period of mastering the sexual reflex sounds like the kind of challenge that would reveal something like that, especially as celibacy is something that could have some curious impacts on both your mind, your body, and I know it's trite to say, but your soul as well. Now, you might be like me, asking yourself what might the sacrifices of intercourse for 100 days yield for a young whippersnapper like myself. Some small and unique changes in character, temperament, and aesthetics have been ironed out, not only for individuals like myself, but multiple individuals out there who have commenced this very curious journey of celibacy. Bigger changes and more permanent changes have also been experienced, but I will warn you that they're not all what they seem to be on the surface. When you begin to play and experiment with the primal forces of nature, you begin to gamble with both the remarkable and the not so remarkable. Now, some of these you will experience in as little as 7 to 14 days. However, as is the jester of life, the more faithful you are to this alluring practice, the prospect of reward just increases as you begin to hunt down the 100th day, as is my personal experience of going beyond the wall or the veil of 365 days, and other accounts equally give testimony to this notion. So I want to first start off with a question. What might you suppose the body is experiencing after 7 days of abstinence? It's a long time. What are you communicating to your very flesh that might provoke or incite a reaction? You are removing a sexual tax from your day-to-day experience, be it masturbation or intercourse. What is the fact of the matter is when you temporarily remove its existence from your life, what may be the consequence? And I use the word tax deliberately, gentlefolk. There is a process of removing something from your body that would subsequently mean the body must work in a fashion to replace it, which is your sexual fluid. In this way, one of the initial things every man will experience on this march towards 100 days is the handsome reward of, it's got to be more energy, more vigor, more zeal, more gritty determination to go out there and get done in the world what needs to be done. And this is also ratified scientifically with studies indicating that free-base testosterone levels skyrocket up to 145.7% on the 7th days without any sexual release. But of course, you already knew that. What you might not know is how this then might affect something that you do on average 8 to 9 hours a day, depending on the clinician's opinion that you ask for. So let me ask you something else. If a man then is no longer having to replace his sexual fluids after being taxed through his medium of choice, what then are the implications on the body and its need for recovery? The logical answer would be, would he need less of it? And that is actually precisely what happens. So for handsome benefit number 2 is you will see that you need far less sleep than you needed before, which actually personally was the first benefit that I experienced before the increase in energy. In fact, I found that I needed approximately 45 to an hour less sleep every single day when I began to become a little bit more, let's say, conservative with my sexual assets. What is more interesting and more curious is the fashion in which I wait. So little to no grogginess and filled with so much sense of energy and more specifically opportunity the day can bring me. It seems foolish to go back to sleep on waking. As the UK MC Conan rapper would say, I'm trying to live my dreams so I sleep less. Now, I did promise at the start of this video, there are elements of permanent change that you will experience. And the first permanent change you will experience, which is kind of closely related to the latter point and whether handsome or hideous is still up for personal debate. You can kind of tell me your personal opinion on this, my fine folk, is, let me take you back to your younger years, around kind of 13, 14, 15 years old, which is almost constantly inundated with never-ending stiffness in the southern region of your body, depending on the time of day. For example, one of the reasons that I'm, still rather dubious about whether or not this is a handsome or hideous change is because I wake up every single morning with a raging erection that is the impotence for me to get out of bed and do what needs to be done in the day. And one of the reasons that I have no issues whatsoever in getting up early in the morning anymore. It's kind of like my body is compelled to make sweet, sweet love to the day, as crude as that may sound, or actually that sounds rather romantic, don't you think? And in fact, over the years, I've started to draw, parallels between morning wood and energy, virility, and fundamentally your health. Simply put, if you're not waking up ready to penetrate the day, then more than likely you won't penetrate the day. A limp dick under any context I don't think it's a good dick. That's going to be a soundbite. Now, if there's going to be a hideous effect during the first 7 days of this particular practice, what do you imagine that might be? Especially considering that your body, it has more than likely acclimatized to a certain, let's say, expectation of experiencing things. And if it doesn't experience these things, what if it doesn't experience these things for the next 100 days? Additionally, also, when we consider the aggressive transition in our hormones, you are right in your presumptions that I and many others would experience some heavy mood swings throughout the week, throughout the day, but more specifically, I'm speaking about aggression and maybe a longing for violence in some context because you're not getting what you want. Now, if you're anything like me, fret not, who has a long history of practicing interoceptic practices like meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, then you will be imbued with the skills that will allow you to mitigate this. Others will have more of a challenge in this area, but fret not, this is a change that isn't so permanent compared to this very handsome one going beyond the 14 days of celibacy. So reading the fine details of the previous studies do in fact tell us that testosterone does come back down to baseline after the 7 days of celibacy. However, before sharing with you the evidence that demonstrates that the literal expression of masculine characteristics continues to rise is curious to impose on ourselves. Why might that be the case in the first place? If the body is not receiving the feedback that it is sexually successful, let's say, by experiencing the big O, the fireworks, what then might be the reaction of the body? Cue the biological wingman, which is an internal mechanism the body is leveraging to get you to the goal of attracting a mate and reproducing. Now, this biological wingman begins to accrue in strength and power the longer and longer you communicate technically sexual failure. But the first thing it will begin to do is increase androgen receptors and the body's sensitivity to those receptors. Now, I have done multiple videos on androgen receptors, so feel free to subscribe and watch them in another time. But simply put, they allow for the expression of testosterone, especially in high density AR locations, such as the shoulders, such as the trap, such as the neck, the upper chest. And yes, this handsome change, and it is a handsome change, literally a handsome change, is a permanent change. There is a denser, more fuller look to your muscles. I would say in my experience around 21 days, and naturally an increase in physical performance in those areas as a consequence of the aesthetics. So, more strength, more power, more endurance as well, running for longer, not getting out of breath, being able to go for longer periods of time in endurance events. Now, I do estimate that the next change is going to be the most hideous experiences throughout this journey. Whether it is a permanent change is really difficult to say. In my personal experience, it kind of comes and goes. It's like seasons. It's like summer, spring, autumn. And it is a dark, dark winter when this particular change does happen. So, what we have to understand first and foremost is our body, but more specifically our mind, has garnered so many sexual impressions and images and visuals due to, the illicit material online and our own experiences sexually as well, to the point then when the mind is weak, especially I would say towards the latter end of the day when you're going to sleep, you will be attacked by lustful thoughts and fantasies. And to be honest, that's just the start. That's just the minor stuff that happens. I actually find that if you don't put practices in place to mitigate these things, then, what would you suppose that might happen? The influx of lust and fantasy begins to bleed from your conscious mind into the subconscious parts of your mind when you're asleep, when you're dreaming, which can consequentially lead to becoming a nightmare. And there's actually a term for this. The succubus, a linen demon in female form or supernatural entity that appears in dreams to seduce men, usually through sexual activity. And even more seriously, this can lead to something like wet dreams. Now, there's a lot of ambivalence in wet dreams, whether or not they're a good thing, whether or not they're a bad thing, whether or not they're going to reset your celibacy period. The jury's still out in that respect. I'm firmly of the opinion that you're not consciously choosing to relapse in that particular context. So technically that cannot count towards a reset because you weren't really conscious. And there's some individuals that debate whether or not it's actually prostatic fluid that is leaking or sexual fluid that is leaking. There is a distinction between the two of the reproductive semen the reproductive sperm and, the semen that is the lubricant for the sperm. But maybe I'll do another video on that. You can let me know. Now, 45 days plus in personal experience and others are where the bigger payoffs usually start to happen. The next one is highly underrated in my personal opinion because it is a transformation of one of the more earlier hideous changes that will happen into something a lot more handsome in my estimation. You'll hopefully remember me saying that during the earlier phases of celibacy, there is a big upheaval in emotional instability, more anxiety, and more anger in the serious cases. But if you manage to weather this storm, then the rough waters will give way to more, let's say, stoic changes in your temperament. That is correct. You will find that as your D2 dopamine receptors begin to heal, you are far more contented with the world around you. Anxiety begins to diminish, confidence begins to skyrocket, and overall your negative internal dialogue will begin to fade away with each passing day. But the most significant one in my personal opinion is what we can assume from the healing of our internal reward centers. And this is that we get more joy and pleasures out of the novel things in life. Never has music sounded so ecstatic, so orgasmic in some cases, which is the irony. Simply put, the smaller things in life are far more pleasurable because you're not getting that big spike of dopamine comparatively to intercourse. Now, there are some unique and, let's say, variances in changes, both good and bad, that can happen during this period that I will reveal very, very shortly. Next, through actually a very particular personal experience, a personal anecdote that was what would you say, the inspiration for this video. Then I will reveal what I believe are the biggest payoffs after 60 days that many of you will experience on completion on this journey. But first and foremost, we have after a 100-day streak, this is what the individual got during their period of celibacy. Now, some positive results to note, some of which we've kind of touched on before. Good vitality every day, having high motivation to do anything and everything, being calmer, more in control of things like social anxiety, deep interrupted sleep, physical abilities increasing endurance, more aggression, tremendous energy, feel tremendous heat in my dantian as if somebody put an incendiary there. And that's just a reference to your undercarriage, your perineum, which is, it's not boring, I guess. Negative, a lot of lustful thoughts, high energy, cannot fully focus on anything and get bored that no activity can distract me. Some people have reported difficulty in sleeping because, again, your testosterone and energy is so high. I can see that being a hideous change for sure, but I definitely think there's more fruit in that than there is rotten fruit in that. This individual does report wet dreams, as I touched on. Did not have strong immunity, which is a weird one. I would think that that would not be the case, as technically speaking, we are healing our nervous system and, as a consequence, our immune system. And sometimes periods of sexual and emotional frustration, which, again, is very, very understandable in this case. So I'm sure you've long been waiting for this particular payoff. In my estimation, there are two significant changes that will happen around this stage, and maybe earlier for some of you, but first it is necessary to understand the happening in our bodies as to why this result happens. Now, when our life energy ascends, it generates a profound magnetic force enhancing your sexual allure to others. This heightened attraction does demand vigilance, for it extends beyond the physical and the tangible. It is etheric or ethereal. This magnetic attraction, rooted in the etheric plane, necessitates continuous awareness to be able to discern why it happens. You will exude a irresistible charm and charisma, and your etheric body emits a subtle vibration, an aura, so to speak, and you must remain cognizant of their influences. The attraction experienced by the opposite sex will manifest in many different ways. It may be subtle, it may be more obvious, yet at its core, it is fundamentally sexual. However, this is not mere physical attraction. It is a response to the sexual energy that is accruing inside our body as it ascends into the CSF, the masculine part of our pole. Those drawn to you are responding to the higher sexual charge, transforming into magnets themselves, a literal magnet. By maintaining your detachment, you can guide and assist them in their journey. I'm also very much of the opinion that how you relate to yourself changes at the time, making you kind of like more nonchalant than the average man in respects to courtship. If you carry yourself with this kind of I don't give a damn attitude, it's actually very, very attractive to the kind of craving, desirous goblin of a man trying to court a woman. Plus all the additional benefits in the previous days, less anxiety, more relatable and positive emotions towards yourself, that one of the most handsome payoffs is more attraction, not just from women, but also, other people in general, random strangers, your friends, because you're carrying yourself in a more dignified manner. Now, the peak handsome change in this journey must be the following. Here's the curious phenomenon. Let's say excessive ejaculation disrupts one's kind of alignment with intuitive insight, often resulting in a persistent sense of being misplaced and mistimed in life. And this phenomenon may stem from physiological factors such as adrenal fatigue or dopamine imbalance, but its impact is most keenly felt kind of on this kind of spiritual and etheric level. The diminished sensitivity to intuitive kind of nudges and subtle yet crucial rushes of excitement that guides one on the path of life to their desired outcome, it becomes evident. In contrast, the practice of celibacy, it restores this sensitivity, reawakening this inner compass that aligns you with universal cues, ensuring you find yourself in synchrony and synchronicity with life's truest path. So the most profound thing I'm trying to communicate here is that celibacy will have a tangible effect on your ability to bring into your life what you desire. And this lies in the enhanced capacity to be able to kind of perceive and interpret these intuitive signals. So as one begins to continue practicing celibacy, the ability to kind of tune in to the universe's guidance It intensifies, making the act of manifesting your desires a more effortless and potent endeavor. The heightened sensitivity to its intuitive and emotional cues allows for a more clearer understanding of the steps necessary to achieve one's particular goals. The spiritual clarity gained through celibacy practice amplifies one's ability to harness, I know it's cliche to say, but the law of attracting what you want into life, transforming your desires into reality with remarkable efficiency, in my estimation. And finally, celibacy significantly bolsters one's intuitive prowess, magnifying this almost like sixth sense that unites us to the cosmic flow of energy. This esoteric practice empowers individuals to channel their sexual energy towards higher aspirations beyond mere physical gratification. Now, by redirecting this potent force towards wealth creation, or maybe attracting somebody into your life, another personal ambition, one can manifest these desires with the same rapidity and intensity they would attract physically. Thus, celibacy and manifestation are, they're kind of intrinsically linked, as the former enhances the vibrational alignment with the universe in order to bring forth your deepest desires. But what do you think, gentlemen? Are these theories or are these facts? If you subscribe to the theories or the facts, subscribe to me, and we'll speak soon.